Hi there, welcome to Geek'n Stuff. Today's episode of My Geek'n Stuff features the Cosmere. You may be asking the question, what the heck is the Cosmere? Well, if you don't know who Brandon Sanderson is, I'm sure that we can forgive you. But the truth is, the Cosmere is like the universe. It's a shared universe for all of, or most of, Brandon Sanderson's books. He has quite the collection, and here's a picture that depicts all of his books. However, I must say, this picture doesn't show just Cosmere books. You have to understand, he also writes some young adult books that do not have, at least currently, are not even tied in with the Cosmere at all. Though, who knows, maybe one day he will connect it. We'll see. Some of Brandon Sanderson's more well-known books are the Mistborn series, Elantris, which was one of his first ever written. You've got Warbreaker, Arcanum Unbounded, and as it pans out, notice you've got Steelheart, which is not a part of the Cosmere. Steelheart, Firefight, and Calamity are not part of it, but all of the others are. Well, except for Skyward, which is at the bottom right. Now, I just want to take a few minutes to geek out about Brandon Sanderson's books. To me, Brandon Sanderson is one of the most prolific writers of epic fantasy. And there's so many things that have happened behind the scenes with the Cosmere. You read a book, and by itself, it's a good book. And even the ones that are set as a series, those are good series. And they've got a wonderful story. But as you read more and more, you can see a bigger picture, a bigger story that kind of takes place long before any of these books started. And it continues on through who knows how long. One of the more ambitious series that he's written or started to write is called the Stormlight Archive. Now, if you look behind or look at that picture again, at the very top you have his Stormlight Archive. So it starts with Way of Kings, and then you've got Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, and he's finally written Rhythm of War. He only has 4 books out of what he said is a 5-book series, but he also has another 5-book series that's going to connect to that world. And so it's so fascinating and so much fun. And I really think he is one of the most talented world builders out there. Even the profanity has some tie-in to what makes that world unique. For example, in the Stormlight Archive, the things that they worship are things like the storm. And so one of the funny things that they say, the swear words, are like, storm you! And some people get a chuckle out of that and have a hard time taking that seriously, but it's so much fun to see. But I don't want to spoil too much of it. I would say if you're going to start any of Brandon Sanderson's books, especially the Cosmere, I would not start with the Stormlight Archive. And here's why. The Stormlight Archive is a huge series. And by huge, I'm saying the first book is about 1,200 pages. It's a big book. And you have to be willing to sit down and read it and get through it all. And there's a lot of information and a lot of interconnected parts, and it's really hard to get a grasp on it unless you decide that you're going to stick it out. Granted, you could always use the audiobook, and I think that the narrators are great. And so I would say if you're going to start with something that's a little bit easier to swallow, I would start with either Elantris or Warbreaker. Those are 2 books that are currently standalone, although he has said that he's going to be writing some new books in those series. So anyway, it's a very exciting thing. If you want to start with one that already has a series, I would start with Mistborn. Mistborn is a very, very good series, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you've got the first trilogy, which is set in somewhat of a medieval meets, I don't know, they have a lot of balls and castles and things like that. And then the next trilogy seems to be set in kind of a Western old railway type world. And it's just fascinating to see the differences. Now, keep in mind, this is fantasy, but you're not going to be seeing elves and dwarves and other things like that. This is well-defined epic fantasy that thoroughly, it's all the rules are written by the author. And they're different for each book or each series. Okay, for example, the Mistborn series all happens on one world, and their abilities, their magic, as you might call it, follows a set of rules, and I believe that's what's called hard magic. Brandon Sanderson has this thing. If it's hard magic, there's definite rules, and maybe it's not just Brandon Sanderson that does this, but any time in a book that there are no rules for how the magic works, that's called soft magic. So that's like your typical wizard, shoot a bolt of lightning at you kind of a thing. But these that follow definite rules, and it's just really, really cool to try to get to understand that. And not only that, one of my favorite characters in all of his books is Wayne from the Wax and Wayne series, which is the second Mistborn trilogy. And he's so much fun, and you're going to love him, unless for some reason you're nothing like me. Anyway, this is just another one of those things that I could just geek out with for a long time. And I've taken enough of your time. Thank you so much for coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. This is Adam, Geek'n out.